Welcome to Hollywood, the land of fame and fortune. Play your cards right, and you can have your own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You can scribble out your autograph for an adoring fan, or win the coveted Oscar for a performance of a lifetime. But at the end of the day, you'll go home, close the door, slip off your shoes, take off your makeup, and become just as vulnerable as the rest of us. This is the cold case of actress Karyn Kupcinet. Most of us remember the murder of actress Rebecca Schaeffer in 1989. Robert John Bardo stalked her, then shot her to death in her West Hollywood home. But long before that sensational crime came the murder of actress Karyn Kupcinet. Karyn was the daughter of famed columnist and talk show host Irv Kupcinet. The Chicago-based family traveled in the same circles of celebrities and politicians. Once Karyn's career had been chosen for her, her family's connections would open a few doors. As with anyone just starting out, Karyn would face some struggles along the road to fame. Karyn became obsessed with her weight and appearance, which led to an addiction to prescription medications. Things were not much better in Karyn's personal life. Shortly before her murder, her relationship with actor Andrew Prine had come to a screeching halt, and Karyn was finding it hard to let him go. As we delve into Karyn's personal life and career, we'll try to uncover who was in her life at the time of the murder that may have been a person of interest that police either couldn't link to the crime or perhaps may have even overlooked. Karyn's story began at an early age. Her mother Esther was consumed with making her child a star. She began grooming her for stardom before she was even 6 months old. Karyn made her acting debut in 1955 at the age of 13 in the theater production of Anniversary Waltz. From there, it became a life of crash diets and plastic surgery, all to achieve a more sculpted look for a career that Karyn never really wanted. At the age of 20, Karyn was off to Hollywood. Even though she would make appearances on TV shows such as Hawaiian Eye, Perry Mason, and The Donna Reed Show, her career would continue to struggle. Family friend Jerry Lewis gave her a bit part in his movie The Ladies' Man, but critics labeled her a mediocre actress, which filled her with even more self-doubt. As the pressure to succeed began to mount, Karyn would start binging on food and then consume large amounts of prescription diet pills and other medications. In 1962, Karyn began to exhibit personality changes, and in November of that year, she was arrested for stealing items from a department store. She paid a $150 fine and was put on 3 years probation. Just 1 month later, she made a guest appearance on the TV series The Wide Country. This is where she met and fell in love with actor Andrew Prine. Karyn was obsessed with Prine and had become very needy. She wanted an exclusive relationship, but Prine was young. His career was beginning to take off, and he wanted to play the field. Karyn's parents were concerned about the instabilities in their daughter's life and asked actor Mark Goddard and his wife to look after her. When Karyn found herself pregnant with Prine's child in July of 1963, it was Goddard who took her to Tijuana for an abortion and paid for it. Once Prine learned of the abortion, their relationship began to really cool down, and they agreed to just occasionally date. Prine continued to see other women, and the knowledge of this tortured Karyn, and drove her to act out in disturbing ways. When Prine started dating actress Anna Capri, Karyn began spying on the couple and making notes in her diary. She wrote, July 30th, Andy with Anna. Me, watch from hedge. Awful. Nightmares. One afternoon, Prine and his girlfriend heard a noise in his attic and called police. A distraught Karyn was found hiding there. She would later make another entry in her diary. She wrote, November 4th, hiding in his attic. Wish I were dead. Karyn continued to spiral out of control. She was desperate to keep Prine in her life. At one point, she and Prine received anonymous threatening letters. The words were cut from magazines and glued onto paper. One message read, You may die without nobody. Winner of loneliness wants death until someone special cares. It wasn't until the investigation into Karyn's murder began that police discovered that she was behind the letters. The magazines that were used to construct the threats were found in her apartment. Here are just a few sad entries Karyn wrote in her diary just days before she was murdered. She wrote, November 20th, I'm losing reality. November 25th, aid to oblivion. It's obvious that Karyn was in trouble. Her mental stability made her vulnerable to the forces that would ultimately take her life. I will now walk you through the final day of Karyn's life. Wednesday, November 27th, 1963. Karyn lived here at 1227.5 North Sweetser Avenue. These apartments were once home to screen legends Cary Grant and Randolph Scott. There was no record of how Karyn's day started or where she might have gone. Through eyewitness accounts, authorities were able to put together a timeline beginning at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m., Karyn called Andrew Prine. They hadn't seen each other since Sunday, November 24th. Prine said they briefly discussed their faltering relationship, and they agreed to see even less of each other. Karyn then tells Prine that someone left an infant outside her door. He told her to notify police right away. 7 p.m., Karyn's father calls from Chicago. He said his daughter seemed bubbly, enthusiastic. She had just made a guest appearance in an episode of Perry Mason and didn't seem upset at all about her relationship with Prine. There was no mention of an infant being left on her doorstep. 7:30 p.m., Karyn was due to have dinner at the Goddard's home and showed up an hour late. Goddard and his wife stated that Karyn was displaying odd behavior. They said her lips appeared to be numb. Her voice was funny, and she moved her head at odd angles. They also noticed that her pupils were constricted, and she wasn't eating. When Goddard confronted Karyn about her behavior, she said that she had taken a medication called Milltown and began mumbling the story of finding the abandoned infant. Minutes later, Karyn threw herself into Goddard's arms and began to sob about her relationship with Prine. 8:30 p.m., Karyn leaves the Goddard home and takes a taxi straight back to her apartment. She promised to phone the Goddards to let them know that she had made it home safely, but they never received the call. That was the last time the Goddards saw Karyn alive. 9 p.m., freelance writer and friend of Prine, Stephen Rubin, shows up at Karyn's apartment, and the two of them watch TV for a short time, and then Karyn decided to go for a walk. While out walking, she runs into Prine's other friend, Robert Hathaway. She invites him back to her apartment for cake and coffee with Rubin. 11:15 p.m. Karyn claimed to be tired and went to bed. Rubin said that he and Hathaway watched TV for a few minutes longer and then decided to leave. Both young men claimed to have locked Karyn's door when they left. Hathaway invited Rubin back to his apartment to continue watching TV. 11:30 p.m. Prine arrives home after going to the movies with girlfriend Anna Capri. He said he phoned Karyn to clear up a misunderstanding and to see about the abandoned infant. Karyn said the police picked up the child. That was the last communication anyone had with Karyn before she was murdered. 12 a.m., Prine told authorities that he joined Rubin and Hathaway to watch TV into the early morning hours. 12:30 a.m., actress Hope Lang's brother David lived under Karyn's apartment. David said he knocked on Karyn's door and didn't get an answer. He stated that he tried the door handle and it was unlocked, but he didn't enter, and he returned to his apartment. Now let's move on to the discovery of Karyn's body and the investigation that ensued. On November 30th, Goddard and his wife became concerned when they hadn't heard from Karyn and decided to stop by her apartment to check on her. As they approached, they saw newspapers of the last 3 days stacked up beside her door. The couple knocked, but Karyn didn't come to the door. Goddard said he peered through a window and saw the bathroom light on, so he tried the door handle and found it to be unlocked. The actor said he stepped inside and saw Karyn lying on the sofa nude. He called to her, but she didn't respond. He said he didn't know if she was asleep, and out of respect for the fact that she was nude, he told his wife to go check on her. Mrs. Goddard was horrified. It was obvious that Karyn was dead. The couple immediately notified authorities of what they thought was an overdose. When police arrived, they found Karyn's nude body lying on her side with flecks of blood on her face and on a pillow. There were signs of decomposition. Her red bathrobe lay across a chair. The TV was on, but the sound was turned down. A stuffed panda bear was on the floor near an overturned empty coffee pot. A lamp and a snifter filled with cigarettes had also been overturned. A coffee mug was found on the coffee table, and 3 empty mugs were found on the kitchen drain board. Drawers in the bedroom were open, and things were scattered about. Karyn's bed covers were rumpled, and many expensive items were found throughout the apartment. The fact that none of these things were taken told authorities that this was not about robbery. Here's what little information was given by Coroner Harold Cade. The 22-year-old victim measured 5 feet 6 inches in length and weighed 122 pounds. Manner of death was manual strangulation, asphyxia, discoloration of neck area, and fracture of the hyoid bone. The perpetrator of this crime was left-handed. Victim's face was too decomposed to determine other signs of trauma. No other wounds found on the victim's body. Several containers of prescription medications were found in the victim's home. Here are just a few examples. Disoxin, a methamphetamine, a stimulant used to treat ADHD, or it can help obese patients lose weight. Side effects include rapid or irregular heartbeat, delirium, panic, psychosis, and heart failure. Miltown, a tranquilizer, prescribed for anxiety. Side effects include drowsiness, ataxia, dizziness, headache, weakness, nervousness, euphoria, overstimulation, and physical dependence. This medication is rarely ever used today because of the risk of dependence. Amphicel, an amphetamine, prescribed for weight loss. Side effects include aggression, agitation, blurred vision, and confusion. 80 tablets of Disoxin were missing from a bottle that had been recently filled at a pharmacy and were presumed to have been taken by the victim during the last 5 days leading up to her death. Reports after the autopsy have stated that although the tranquilizer Miltown was found in Karyn's toxicology test, the decomposition of her body prevented an accurate screening of the amounts of drugs in her system. The question then becomes, who wanted Karyn Kupcinet dead? Remember that Rubin said that he locked Karyn's door when he and Hathaway left. And then Karyn's neighbor David Lang stated that the door was unlocked at around 12:30 a.m., and there was no response from Karyn at the time. So we can assume that Karyn either opened the door to the killer or Reuben lied about locking up, and her time of death was just before 12:30 a.m. There are 4 persons of interest in Karyn's case. Let's take a closer look. Andrew Prine. It was common knowledge that his relationship with Karyn was rocky. Prine admitted that he was the last known person to speak to Karyn. Conveniently, Prine's alibi for the time Karyn was murdered was that he watched TV with Reuben and Hathaway from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Prine's lie detector test results were inconclusive. Karyn's mother believed Prine was guilty and tried her best to ruin his career. Prine has held the #1 position on the police suspect list over the decades. He passed away in 2022. Stephen Rubin. Karyn never mentioned to the Goddards that Reuben was coming over to her apartment. If Karyn and Prine were slowly calling it quits, why would Prine's friends spend the evening with her? Reuben stuck with Prine's alibi that the 3 friends watched TV together until 3 a.m. Reuben's lie detector test results were inconclusive. Robert Hathaway, Prine's other friend. Robert claimed to have ran into Karyn while she was out taking a walk. The Goddards described Karyn as being in distress, both mentally and physically that evening, leaving some doubt that she was even capable of taking a stroll through the neighborhood. There are some other inconsistencies in Hathaway's statements. He claimed that Karyn invited him back to her apartment for coffee and dessert. Yet, when we count the coffee cups, there are 4, not 3. There were 3 on the drain board in the kitchen and 1 on the coffee table, suggesting that there may have been 4 persons in Karyn's apartment that evening. It's also interesting to note that not one of Hathaway's fingerprints were found inside Karyn's apartment. When authorities asked if he could account for his whereabouts once he left Karyn's apartment, he calmly replied, "I watched TV with Reuben and Prine until 3 a.m. Hathaway's lie detector test results were inconclusive. David Lang. Karyn helped the struggling actor get the apartment under hers. David claimed that he and Karyn weren't close friends, and that he had only recently moved in and not dated Karyn. Other residents claimed that David would get drunk and show up at people's apartments in the complex uninvited. They said David joked a few times that he had killed Karyn. David's girlfriend at the time said that she went to his apartment the night Karyn's body was discovered and questioned him about all the police activity. She said David's response was, "Pull the drapes and keep quiet." When authorities asked where he had been the night Karyn was murdered, he said that he had dinner with actress Natalie Wood and then came home and smoked some pot. He admitted to finding Karyn's door unlocked at around 12:30, but never entered. David's lie detector test results were inconclusive. Karyn Kupcinet always suspected David of killing his daughter. As you can see, there's no shortage of suspects in Karyn's murder, but the mysteries surrounding this case go far beyond these 4 men. In true Hollywood fashion, this murder would take on a twist of its own and carry us to a much darker side of all the glitz and glamour. Before anyone can determine who's responsible for taking Karyn's life, there are certain details that must be considered. Police confirmed that they never received a call from Karyn about an abandoned infant. They surmised that the story that Karyn told was just a ploy to keep Andrew Prine interested in her life. Over time, it was revealed that Coroner Cade was known to be inept. He bungled some other cases that he worked on, and there are rumors that he was responsible for breaking Karyn's hyoid bone during the autopsy. A letter was found scribbled out by Karyn in her living room that had the earmarks of a suicide note. She wrote about not being pretty, stating that her body would never be in the shape that would please her mother. She asked, "Why doesn't Andy want me?" Some have gone so far as to say that this is not a murder case at all. They believe that this is nothing more than a tragic accident. In rare cases, an accident can cause the fracture of the hyoid bone. The question then becomes, did Karyn fall and hit her neck on her coffee table? It's possible that she may have gotten up, laid down on her sofa, and the obstruction in her airway caused her to die of asphyxia. Authorities disagree with this theory and seem certain that Karyn died of manual strangulation. The last mystery comes down to a phone call made 20 minutes before the assassination of John F. Kennedy. A frantic call was placed to an operator from a woman screaming, "The president is going to be killed." The call came from within 50 miles of Karyn's apartment. The operator said the woman mumbled several incoherent things before hanging up. When Karyn's voice was compared to the one that the operator heard, she said it didn't sound like Karyn. The conspiracy goes that Karyn Kupcinet was friends with Jack Ruby in Chicago before Ruby went to Texas. Ruby then shared information with Irv about Kennedy's assassination. Then Irv shared that information with Karyn. Karyn then became hysterical and made the phone call to try to stop it. 6 days later, Karyn is found dead. In interviews over the years, Prine and actor Earl Holliman have given statements about the hours following the assassination. The actors were with Karyn at the time. They said that she was upset like everyone else, and they all agreed that it would be good for them to get out of town together. They packed a bag and went to Palm Springs for the weekend. Karyn Kupcinet stated that he thought any attempt to connect Kennedy to his daughter's murder was an atrocious outrage. The Warren Commission concluded that there was no evidence linking Kupcinet to Ruby or the Kennedy assassination, and yet the conspiracy rages on. For over 60 years, many have tried to unravel what really happened to Karyn Kupcinet. Was she murdered? Was it just a tragic accident? Is her murder in some way connected to President Kennedy? For those coming to Hollywood seeking fame and fortune, the whispered story of Karyn's tragic end can still be heard. In the land of make-believe, it's all so easy to bury the truth. This is 22-year-old actress Karyn Kupcinet. Her life was taken on November 28, 1963. If you know what happened to Karyn, please contact the Los Angeles County Sheriff's West Hollywood Station at 310-855-8850 or 1-800-222-TIPS. Are you obsessed with true crime content? Subscribe now and join our growing community as we analyze and discuss the details of some truly baffling cold cases. Browse our growing library of cold case investigations and immerse yourself in the mysteries that keep us up at night. Subscribe and join the EOJ community today. All it takes is a click.